Welcome to today's episode of the Women in Medtech podcast. I'm Colleen Patterson, your host, and as always with us, we've got Barbara Strain and Stephanie Pitts. We're also excited to be joined by Emily Levy of Mighty Well. You may remember Emily from one of our founder story features last year. We spoke to her last in May of 2024. And if you're meeting her for the first time, just a little background on Emily. She's an entrepreneur, a healthcare KOL, a keynote speaker, and we are so excited to have you back, Emily.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor to record the first time, and I can't believe it's been a year. Is that right?
A year. Yeah, I went back and I was like, well, when was the last time we talked to Emily? And it was May of last year. And I was like, man, it really has been a minute. We need to catch up with her. So Barbara, I'm going to pass it over to you because I know you and Emily got a chance to chat about a month ago. Talk to us a little bit about what you guys got up going on.
Well, we did. When we started out I can't believe it's been a year since we'd seen her smiling face and all the things she had to tell us. But we had a really great conversation about sort of catching up. So, Emily, I want to start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Mighty Well's been doing, that growth, your contracts, and how did you make all that happen during that time?
Thank you. So first and foremost, my team, how did we make that happen? My team, my co-founder, Maria, Yusuf, and Caitlin are just outstanding. Definitely am not a one-woman show. A few updates that I'm really proud of is we actually secured one of the largest grant funding from our home state of Rhode Island, which is called an Innovation Voucher. This is something I wanted to do since 2019, and we're using that funding to actually get lab data collected on our hero products, the Pick Perfect Pro, as well as our H2O Shield. So we've had, thousands of qualitative responses from clinicians and patients, how our products improve their lives. But to actually get in a lab and to have state-backed funding to do that, I'd say is like our biggest milestone. We talked about in our last episode, just women's access to capital and funding. And that was honestly a year in the making. So we've been in the lab, which has been super fun. We've also continued to grow our collaboration with Prism Medical, which is a Henry Schein-owned company, being able to offer medical supplies directly to patients, where effectively Mighty Well is the front-end sales agent, and all the back-end operations and licensing and fulfillment is done by Prism. So it's just been really a dream come true to be able to expand our offerings, but most importantly, solve a critical need of accessing medical supplies for patients, which was really a pain point that I had a number of years ago when living with vascular access. And then lastly, on the super fun note, I was selected to be the co-wellbeing champion for the Cartier Women's Initiative, which is a global fellowship for women entrepreneurs all around the world, many of whom are health tech entrepreneurs. I'm solving cool problems, but these women are literally changing the world. One of the founders I just met at our annual conference is literally solving clean toilets, and another is creating disposable feminine care products for women in developing countries. So to support these women with their mental health, spiritual health, and helping them to prevent burnout is just really such a joy. And I'd love to talk more about that.
So just, a thing or two is what you've been working on. Just some details in the background. There's so many exciting things of what you've just talked about, and I'm sure we're going to dive into all of them. But one of the things that you had mentioned first was the Innovation Voucher with the state of Rhode Island, and that's many years in the making. So, obviously capital raising, fundraising, where do you go when you have this beautiful idea of I'm trying to do something that is such a broad topic? It's something we talked about last time. So if you could expand on that a little bit, like what was that voucher? What was that process like? Was that something that you had found and then had like did all the research for? Give us more.
Yeah, I think this is such an important topic for women in medtech specifically. I'd say I'm really more of a vision person, and I'm really excellent at gathering the resources and the right people. So I had the opportunity to really network my way in, I would say. And it was like right time, right place, right circumstances, in that Rhode Island is really growing to be a medtech hub. There's actually another vascular access company that is also part of the Association for Vascular Access Network that recently like brought their headquarters to Rhode Island. They're doing a lot to try to grow our industry. So I'd say like timing was really wonderful. And interestingly enough, I got like two pre-grants in order to get this grant. So I'd say it was like 3 grants in total, totaling probably about $100,000. And like, I just want to name this kind of capital is extremely rare, I think, for states to have. So I always had that vision of growing Mighty Well where I want to live. So I feel really lucky in that. But it really started with networking and naming that we were looking for this kind of funding. If I'm honest, we had originally done a seed round financing before the pandemic, and I had intended to use the capital for this type of data collection. But of course, the business model had to change during COVID. So it just got put on the back burner. So I'd say to all the listeners out there, like there is so much grant funding, and often there's like pre-grants, pre-work, and a lot of networking that has to go into getting them or just showing up in the right circles. So I'll give a shout out to the New England Medical Innovation Center based in Providence. I'd say anyone on the East Coast should definitely know about them. And they helped to get like the pre-grant and to tell us there was this funding opportunity.
Showing up there is, I think, one of the things that can be so intimidating of like, especially because one of the items that we've talked about in previous episodes is the idea of I don't belong here yet, or I'm not ready yet, or like I'm, as you were talking about like the Cartier Women's Initiative, you were like, these women are doing amazing things. And so we, especially as women, have the tendency to talk down to ourselves and our self-talk that we're not ready yet. We're not there yet. In order for me to show up, I need to do these other things. So I think you bringing back the idea of like, you got to show up, even if you don't feel ready, you got to show up, because it's all about laying that that groundwork, that foundation for where you wanting to go. So, as you're having some of those pre-discussions, as you're starting those initial conversations, how do you feel like that helped you kind of tweak what your final like grant proposals would be? Because I'm sure that's an iterative example of I'm not going in on day one for some of these pre-grants you ended up in the last one. So how did you go about kind of gathering some of that feedback, learning more, being able to speak to some of those people on those panels or in those meetings to help guide direction?
For sure. I'd say it always started with educating the funders on the problem, especially within vascular access. Many people outside of our industry aren't really familiar with vascular access, infusion therapy, like what is a PIC, things like that. So naming the problem, I think, is huge, and being really clear about why this needs to be funded. I will say also got really lucky. One of those pre-grants was being able to work with a formal grant writer. So I was able to put everything down, and then she was able to tighten it up. And her specialty was SBIR grants. So she had done that for her own company. So I feel like very, very fortunate there. Although I had led all of Mighty Well's other grant applications previously, but ultimately, making the business case about how using this grant funding, especially from the state level, would impact not only my own business or the listener's business, but how does this impact the goals of the funder? So, for example, Rhode Island wanting to grow Medtech here, and especially women and underrepresented founders.
Emily, I have a question. I want to take a step back on something you said earlier, because you're so savvy about this, and I want to pause and just recognize one thing that I've watched you do over the years so well is surround yourself with, you said it, the right people. And you have a gift of networking, and you do it with such intention. And I see especially in startups where this is done right, and I will tell you, it's few and far between, it leads to the grant success. It leads to the community acknowledgement. It leads to business success ultimately, right? And you breezed over it. You were like, yep, it's the right people. It's networking. Like, oh, it's so easy. And not everybody will say that's easy. So if, you're coaching, let's say you had opportunity to coach your next, startup or a friend out in the community that's like, man, I'm really struggling. I've got all these friends. I have all these connections, but I'm not making headway like you did. Dive a little deeper into that for us, because there is a gift in there that you have that we have to figure out what those key elements are, because it's worth sharing.
Thank you, Stephanie. I've never put words to it, but I actually have been advising other companies and a lot of founders, so it's good for me to think out loud about it. I'd say one, I think it's just part of an innate gift I have, and really feeling like the energy of people. But I'd say for those who it might be an overwhelming process, is I'd always do your background research as to where is the capital coming from, whether that's an angel investor or a grant funder, because I've found that one, a lot of funding sources, whether that's venture capital, angel funding, or grant programs, often have a lot of strings attached, and they often have an agenda. So just making sure that you are on board with that, or really what the fine print is. And thankfully, any credible program will have that online. So do your homework. I would say always talk to other people that you may be connected with, or 1 to 2 degree connection of, did someone else get a grant or an investment from this person, or bring this person on as an advisor, and really ask them what was their honest experience. I'd say I'm doing a lot of that now for people who are applying to the next cohort of whether that's the Morgan Stanley Inclusive Venture Lab that we were part of, or the Cartier Women's Initiative. And ultimately, I have, had a lot of failures. I've wasted my time meeting people. I think a lot of people who say they're funders are not really. I think these days, a lot of people can say, well, I'm an angel investor, or really they're just investing in, equity crowdfunding campaigns. So I think there is definitely a sniff test that you have to have. But ultimately, I really think it starts with having the vulnerability to reach out and say, this is who I am, this is the venture or the project I'm working on, and here's the kind of support I'm seeking. I think even in a 15 to 30-minute Zoom call, you can usually tell if someone is both legitimate and a good energetic fit. So yeah, it's the first time I'm trying to put words to it, Stephanie, but thank you for recognizing my skill set there.
You're definitely good at it. So thanks for a little deeper dive.
I would actually even say, for a lot of our founders, we're talking about your skill set of identifying energy. And I am a big believer of that, of people, and it sounds hokey, but people give off vibes. There's people that you just meet that feel we're going to get along. We are on the same wavelength. We are talking the same talk and using different words, but we're there. The synergy's there. There's magic in the room. And there's also the element of, as you're building your team, you have said multiple times, it's not just me. I've got amazing people around me. I've got amazing people, who do those things. Well, there's always the element of well, how do you find them? And I know, for instance, right now we're in a job market where there does seem to be a lot of people looking of, if you have the option of 5, 10 We in our most recent job posting, we had 2,000 applicants. So
Whoa.
like, yeah, I know. Like, there's absolutely no way you can talk to that many people. So as you're really looking for, obviously not just the any person, but who. One of the themes from a lot of our other calls is like you get a cabinet of people. Like, this is my high table. These are the knights of my court. So when you're really identifying those people that you're keeping closest to you, your mission, your goals, what are some of the key factors or personality traits or things you're really looking for to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with those right people, like the people that are going to help drive your mission?
I love this question. I love that we're talking about this. So first and foremost, I really focused on building an advisory board. And for those who are new to that term, it's not what most people think of as like their true governance board. Mm-hmm. This can be something a little bit more loose and casual, where you often do, exchange equity for advice or consulting services. And I had an amazing mentor who first, educated me on this. So building advisory boards has really been key for myself as a leader, for Mighty Well, and for so many of my female founder friends. I'd say if this is the first time you're hearing about an advisory board, a great rule of thumb is 0.25% equity in exchange. A 1-year advisory board term, and get very, very clear about what the advisor is helping you with. When are you meeting? What the expectations are? How their equity would eventually convert in a price round. Example. For me, I really focused, and people have rotated off the advisory board, but focused on skill sets that I didn't have, or I even hate to say it at times, putting gray hair in the room, because I did start Mighty Well at 21 years old with my 2 co-founders from a dorm room. So we really at times, not so much anymore, kind of had to have, some gray hair in the room in the best intensive purposes. But for me, some examples would be wanting to find someone who had manufacturing background, someone who had grown global brands before, a medical advisor, and the list goes on. And I'll be the first to say I've had too many people on my advisory board, and that is a headache to manage. So I found for me and for a lot of my founder friends, the sweet spot is about 3 people, and just being really clear with what the roles and responsibilities are. So I want to name that. And then on the other hand, back to more of that energetic side, I have what I call a council. And this is very much women who are in my back corner, who will pull up to that round table when there's a crisis, whether personally or professionally. These are women that I can literally cry to over the phone, or will meet me on a Sunday for a cup of coffee when I'm in their city. So I don't think that's talked about enough, especially in the business world. But I think you can break it down into like 3 tiers, like your business governance board, your advisory board, who knows you personally and professionally.
Love that.
Yeah, makes sense. Sort of a tangential question is around people who have a product like yourself, and they think they've just made it, but you need to stay relevant. And how do you do touch points about the relevancy of either your product or your business model compared to what's really going on? I'm just going to say today for a euphemism, but what does that really look like? And how do you really do that? You've kind of intimated a little bit about odds and ends, but how do you really think about that, product-wise, business-wise, staying really relevant?
Thank you. I think it's 2 fronts for us. One, my co-founder Maria is like all about data. So almost every day, she or one of our other team members is pulling data about how campaigns are doing, what blog posts are going well. And we have like a full week report and team kind of all hands, we call it. But we're very fortunate in that we're so close to our customer, who 9 times out of 10 is the patient or the clinician placing a vascular access or device or maintaining a vascular access device. I think because of the way we speak, we speak patient, and that is our superpower. People tell us stuff, for better or for worse. I feel like sometimes it's like borderline therapy, and we're like, whoa, like, here's a hotline. But quite often people want to tell us their stories in the form of blogs, in the form of contributing to our newsletter, tagging us on social media. It was actually really amazing. I was in Tokyo last week for a work conference. And I got a direct message on Instagram from an executive at Becton Dickinson who had heard me give a keynote presentation years ago to their sales force. His wife had a pick very unexpectedly. He remembered us. He reached out in my Instagram messages asking for help. He needed it rush shipped, and I was able to, make that happen for him, even though I was halfway around the world. So that's part of the beauty of being small and nimble and digitally first. But at the same time, we've had to be very responsive to business models. I will say, flat out, we've really shifted to an Amazon first strategy, just because that's where we saw the majority of our return on ad spend was coming from. And what we found was that we would build the educational content on mightywell.com, but people really needed that next day delivery that we as a small business couldn't shoulder the cost of one day shipping. So it's a combination, Barbara, and it's ever evolving. Like these tariffs are keeping me up at night. We're starting to think about digital first products, and we've migrated a lot of our digital education into free digital downloads. So we're always evolving, but at the end of the day, I think it's as close as you can be to the end consumer is how you're going to get ahead.
I think the idea of you guys are in a fortunate space, but the voice of the customer is such a huge impact of the success of whatever you're doing. It's the next generation of your equipment. It's what markets you need to be in. It's knowing hey, you're looking for those next day supplies. I need to shift my distribution model to be able to meet you and really address that. When people feel heard, they feel recognized. And that intrinsically just generates the sale, the relationship. Because I know one of your big tenets is that it's not a transaction. It's really about that patient's journey through their care. I have to say, I'm absolutely fascinated when Barbara had said that you had agreed to come back on and she had mentioned the Cartier Women's Initiative. I was like, I've never even heard of that. And when because I go on and I'm doing my little research and the stories on there, absolutely amazing. So give our audience just a little bit of background about what they did and how you got involved with such an amazing program.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm blown away too. I literally just got back from their annual conference in Japan. And this is a program spanning 19 years. It was really one of the first women's entrepreneurship fellowships and grant programs that spanned the entire world. Most of these are very US centric. And if I remember this correctly, it came out of a Women's Economic Forum initiative, and Cartier, the global high-end jewelry company, actually took this on as one of their main philanthropic initiatives. And the program has just bloomed. That's my dog.
I don't think we can hear him in the background. You're good.
The program's really blossomed and bloomed even since I was a fellow of 2019. So how it works, it's a very rigorous and due diligence process. Every year, thousands of women from all around the world apply. There's a very strict criteria, but we went through due diligence with Ernst & Young. They flew in a team. They came to our offices in Rhode Island. There was rounds of interviews. But again, it goes back to we were looking for grant funding. And we're looking for mentorship to really build that council, that advisory board. So fun fact for all the listeners, which I just admitted at the conference, is we weren't accepted the first year that we applied. And I was heartbroken because looking at the website, I'm like, this is my dream women to surround myself with. This is one of those rooms where you walk into and you feel like these women are smarter than me. They're my equals, but they're smarter than me. There's so many women with PhDs. And so we applied again because I just had that hunch that I was we belong here. And for all your listeners, I've always had that attitude of, why not me? I see so many, male-led startups get funding on an idea, a pitch deck, and going to the right university. I think women really do need that extra leg up in the world. And this program certainly provides it. And one of the things I love most is it's not just a grant. It's really a lifelong fellowship. There's women I'm still meeting, and we support each other in all ways. I have an executive coach through them. I have this opportunity to volunteer as the well-being champion for this group. So it's always evolving. It's always growing. And applications are open for your listeners. I can definitely send that along. I'm going to do a open call and talk with anyone who's thinking of applying.
Oh, wonderful. We'll be sure for our audience in our social posts, we'll be sure to link in that Cartier Women's Initiative. And as always, Emily's going to be tagged in those posts because it is a big part of us supporting each other, of us being hey, here is a door. You have to walk through it on your own, but sometimes even knowing that doors are there to walk through.
That's huge.
You don't know what you don't know. And it's not possible to search every single thing. So, when you have such an amazing opportunity to be able to share that, that's really special, Emily. And I'm sure our audience is going to appreciate that as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll link it for sure.
Right. So you mentioned wellness more than once, and I know that you're continuing your own wellness sort of journey and knowledge around things. And you said something amazing when we were talking, that you are actually going to journey to the Amazon and sort of connect up with, natives of those areas and things. Any sort of snippets about all that might be interesting to folks?
Yes. Oh my God. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks for remembering. So to put it into context, I actually had the opportunity to go to the Brazilian Amazon in 2021 and been able to thankfully learn from, heal with, and study with indigenous wisdom keepers from Central and South America, who really are doctors in their own right of native plants and animal medicines that have been used for thousands of years. And for context for our listeners, where I was in 2020, 2021, when this really found me, was I was extremely sick. I had been chronically ill for a long time, but I had actually been bedridden. With looking back now and my blood work, it's probably long COVID, Epstein-Barr, Lyme reactivating, and, our good friend, childhood trauma. And I had a friend who was bringing the chief of a tribe to his family's home in Guatemala. And he posted on Instagram, anyone in need of healing can come. And it saved my life is the simplest way to put it. I always categorize it this way: as vascular access and infusion therapy got me to a certain point, but there was really no end in sight. And I was getting sicker and sicker and had exhausted all my Western medicine options. So again, it was just one of those right time, right place, right circumstances. I dare say it was a miracle that this found me. And I've become an advocate for being that bridge between Western healthcare and healing with native plants and animal medicines from the Amazon. And I think my life is really a testament to that at that point.
How do you see, obviously all medicine starts from originally those like, hey, we're going to mortar and pestle some plants together and come up with that is the foundation of all medication delivery. But how do you see, some of what you've been doing about the trips to the Amazon? How do you see that blending into what Mighty Well is doing and how you guys are going to move forward from here?
Oh my God, great question. And I can't talk about it too much yet. But my co-founder, Marie, and I have really been thinking about really how the spirit of Mighty Well wants to grow and serve the world. I truly believe all businesses have an energetic signature and have a spirit to them. And for me, every time I've thought about it, it's like, what happens to the patient after maybe their PIC has come out, after the home care has stopped, and they're left with symptoms, they're left with medical trauma. And Maria and I keep envisioning that Mighty Well continues to grow into really a healing sanctuary for patients. We're even thinking so far as, wellness products that are not medical supplies like we're adding on right now. One of the things I'm really obsessed with is a plant called ghost pipe, which is a form of medicinal mushroom that's like readily available, but like people don't know about it, or like my, one of my energy worker friends like makes this amazing magnesium cream that just heals all my chronic pain. I'm like, well, how do we bring these things to people for the after? Mm-hmm. So really starting to think about like the 360 of the life cycle of someone who has gone through chronic illness. It's not just, treating a specific diagnosis. It's like treating the whole person. So yeah, we haven't brought it all to life yet, but it's been a lot of like whiteboard sessions of how can we serve the whole person?
Mm-hmm. That's just so key in all healing because so much of it is mental, emotional, and you do get in sort of this different life cycle once you're in that sort of healing and getting to healing, but you're not quite there. And then how do you sort of flip that, mm-hmm. all of a sudden and then become normal again? Or
well, you never become normal, Barbara. Yeah. I'm the first one to admit it.
And I guess that's good for all of us. Oh, that's great.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk more about this in the future for sure. It's definitely something I'm starting to talk about more publicly. And, I was really afraid to talk about it because I had built, my whole business worlds within traditional medical devices. But the world's changing and patients need all the help that they can get.
With that, we are at the top of our time today. And Emily, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us again today. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Your passion for what you do and the vision for not only like you as a person, but how you fit into the ethos of your company and how the company fits into, the energy of how we need to move forward is always really exciting to talk to. I know that we're going to keep in touch and continue to follow your journey. We are all rooting for you in the background, and you have shared so many wonderful things with us today. For our audience, if you've not already done so, be sure to tune in to subscribe, never miss an episode of the Women in Medtech podcast series. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll be sure to share all of this great information with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.